The white and red hull of the USHS Compassion gleamed in the light of distant stars as it moved steadily through space. The medical ship was the pride of the human fleet, not for its weapons or speed, but for the lives it saved. Captain Ethan Wright stood on the bridge, his blue uniform neat and pressed, watching as his crew prepared for their mission. "Status report," he said, his voice calm but carrying authority. Lieutenant Amy Wells looked up from her console. "All systems normal, Captain. We're on course for Proxima Centauri, ETA 17 hours. Captain Wright nodded. The Compassion was headed to the Proxima Centauri colony, where a respiratory illness had already claimed over 300 lives. In the ship's secure medical bays, they carried experimental treatments that could save thousands more. "Captain, Dr. Bennett is requesting to speak with you," said Communications Officer Chris Taylor. "Put her through," Wright replied. The face of Chief Medical Officer Laura Bennett appeared on the main screen. Her brown hair was tied back in a practical bun, and despite having been awake for almost 20 hours preparing medical supplies, her eyes were alert. "Captain, we've finished inventory on the medical supplies. We have enough treatments for about 4,000 patients, plus general antibiotics and antivirals for another 1,000, she reported. "Good work, Doctor. Get some rest. You'll need to be sharp when we reach the colony." Dr. Bennett nodded. "I will. But first I'm checking on our current patients." The screen went dark, and Captain Wright smiled slightly. Laura Bennett was the best doctor in the fleet and the most dedicated. She never rested until all her patients were stable. The Compassion wasn't just a transport vessel for medical supplies. It had 6 fully equipped operating rooms, 200 patient beds, and a staff of 50 doctors and nurses. Currently they had 17 patients on board, miners from an asteroid belt they had passed 3 days ago, suffering from radiation poisoning. In the medical bay, Dr. Bennett moved from bed to bed, checking vital signs and speaking softly to each patient. Nurse Olivia Martinez followed her, updating medical charts on her tablet. "How's Mr. Patterson doing?" Dr. Bennett asked, looking at an older man whose skin had a grayish tint from the radiation. "Much better. His blood cell count is almost normal, and the nausea has stopped," Nurse Martinez answered. Her gentle voice and kind smile had earned her the nickname Angel among the patients. "Good. He can probably be discharged when we reach Proxima Centauri," Dr. Bennett said, making a note on her own tablet. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Samuel Green was elbow-deep in the guts of a cooling system. Sweat beaded on his dark skin as he carefully adjusted the settings. "Hand me the microspanner," he said to his assistant, Frank Davis. Davis passed him the tool. "Is it serious?" Green shook his head. "Just a minor fluctuation. But on a medical ship, even minor problems get fixed immediately. Someone's life might depend on this system working perfectly." Meanwhile, in the security office, Jack Donovan was running routine scans of the surrounding space. The former Marine had seen enough combat to last a lifetime. Now he found peace in protecting those who saved lives rather than took them. His console beeped, showing a small anomaly at the edge of their sensor range. Probably just space debris, but Donovan was thorough. He adjusted the sensors for a more detailed scan. The anomaly disappeared. Donovan frowned and ran the scan again. Nothing. After 20 years in space, he had developed good instincts, and something felt off. But with no evidence of a problem, all he could do was make a note in the log and continue monitoring. "Security to bridge," he said into his communicator. "Bridge here," answered Lieutenant Wells. "Just picked up a strange reading on long-range sensors. Probably nothing, but I'll keep an eye on it." Acknowledged. "Keep us posted." 8 hours into their journey, the ship's communication system chirped with an incoming message. "Communications." Officer Taylor straightened in his seat. "Captain, we're receiving a distress call from Mining Outpost Delta 7. It's on the edge of our route to Proxima Centauri." Captain Wright moved to Taylor's station. "Put it through." A static-filled message played through the bridge speakers. "This is Mining Outpost Delta 7 requesting emergency medical assistance. We have multiple injured personnel following an equipment malfunction. Several miners are trapped, and we have severe burn cases. Please help." Wright didn't hesitate. Lieutenant Wells, plot a course to Delta 7. Mr. Taylor, inform them we're on our way, and alert Dr. Bennett to prepare for trauma cases. Sir, said Lieutenant Wells, intelligence reports showed increased Krell activity in that sector last month. The Krell were an aggressive reptilian species that had encountered humans 5 years ago. Relations had been tense but not openly hostile. Noted, Wright replied, but they've never attacked a medical vessel, and those miners need our help. Mr. Donovan, run continuous security scans as we approach. Yes, sir, Donovan replied over the comm system. Dr. Bennett received the news while finally getting some much-needed rest in her quarters. She immediately got up and headed to the medical bay, sending alerts to her staff along the way. Nurse Martinez, prepare trauma bays 1 through 4, she ordered, as she entered the medical bay. We need burn treatment kits, surgical equipment for crush injuries, and at least 4 units of universal donor blood per expected patient. Within minutes, the medical staff was moving with practiced efficiency, converting recovery rooms to trauma centers and setting up additional diagnostic equipment. In the engine room, Engineer Green pushed the engines to their limits, carefully, balancing speed with safety. The Compassion wasn't built for speed, but every minute could mean life or death for the injured miners. Approaching mining outpost Delta 7, announced Lieutenant Wells, after 3 hours of hard travel. On screen, ordered Captain Wright. The view screen showed a small asteroid with boxy structures built into its surface, a typical mining outpost. But something was wrong. There were no external lights, no visible activity. I'm not detecting any life signs, reported Science Officer Helen Rodriguez, her voice tense. And the outpost power systems appear to be offline. Could their systems be damaged in the accident? Wright asked. Possibly, but Rodriguez was cut off by an urgent call from Security Officer Donovan. Captain, 3 ships decloaking around us. The bridge crew watched in shock as 3 sleek predatory vessels appeared on their sensors, surrounding the Compassion in a triangular formation. Their hulls were dark gray with red markings, Krell warships. Open a channel, Wright ordered, keeping his voice steady. Broadcast on all frequencies, including the Universal Emergency Band. Channel open, Taylor confirmed. This is Captain Ethan Wright of the USHS Compassion. We are a medical vessel responding to a distress call. We are unarmed and protected under Section 3 of the Interstellar Humanitarian Treaty. Please state your intentions. There was a long pause. Then a harsh, reptilian voice responded, human vessel. You have entered Krell space, prepare to be boarded. There must be some mistake, Wright replied calmly. According to galactic charts, this is neutral territory. We are here on a humanitarian mission only. Please scan our vessel. You will see, we carry only medical equipment and supplies. Instead of a response, the lead Krell ship fired a warning shot that passed just in front of the Compassion's bow. All hands, yellow alert, Wright ordered. Mr. Taylor, continue broadcasting our medical status. Mr. Donovan, raise defensive shields but do not power weapons. Dr. Bennett, secure your patients. The bridge crew moved with tense efficiency, but there was fear in their eyes. The Compassion had minimal defensive capabilities. It was never meant for combat. Captain, said Lieutenant Wells quietly. The distress call. It was a trap. Captain Wright's face hardened as he looked at the 3 warships on the screen. So it seems, but why target a medical ship? Before anyone could answer, the Krell opened fire. The first blast hit the Compassion with devastating force. The ship shuddered and emergency lights flashed on as regular illumination failed. On the bridge, Captain Wright was thrown from his chair. He quickly got back to his feet, a small cut, bleeding on his forehead. Damage report, he called out. Lieutenant Wells checked her console, which was sparking. Direct hit to our port shield generator, shields at 40% capacity. Continue broadcasting our status as a medical vessel, Wright ordered Communications Officer Taylor. Remind them we are protected under interstellar law. Taylor nodded, his fingers flying over his console. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Sir. No response. The ship rocked again as another blast struck. This time the lights went out completely before the emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red. In the medical bay, Dr. Bennett was thrown against a wall by the impact. She pushed herself up, ignoring the pain in her shoulder, and rushed to check on her patients. "Secure all patients with extra restraints," she ordered her staff. "Move critical cases to the inner chambers." Nurse Martinez was already strapping down a sedated miner as the ship shook. "What's happening?" "We're under attack," Dr. Bennett replied grimly. The Krell. The next blast was worse than the first two combined. A support beam crashed down in the medical bay, narrowly missing Dr. Bennett but pinning a young nurse to the floor. Martinez rushed to help her colleague while Dr. Bennett checked the injured woman's vitals. "Get me a neck brace and backboard," Dr. Bennett called out. "Possible spinal injury." On the bridge, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Science Officer Rodriguez looked up from her readings with fear in her eyes. "Captain, they're targeting our life support systems and medical bays specifically. This isn't random fire." Wright's face hardened. "They know exactly what they're doing." He pressed his communicator. "Bridge to security. Donovan, what's our status?" Security Officer Donovan's voice came through with static. "Sir, shields are almost gone. They're preparing to board us. I count at least 3 boarding parties." "Security protocols Alpha through Delta," Wright ordered. "Protect the patients and medical staff at all costs." "Sir?" Donovan's voice was hesitant. "Should I implement emergency protocol Omega?" There was a heavy pause on the bridge. Emergency protocol Omega was classified. Few of the crew even knew. It existed. It meant accessing the ship's hidden weapon systems, a violation of the medical vessel's neutral status. Before Wright could answer, another hit rocked the ship, more violent than all previous ones. A console exploded on the bridge, sending Lieutenant Wells flying across the room. She lay unmoving on the floor, her uniform smoldering. Captain Wright rushed to her side, checking for a pulse. He found one, but it was weak. "Bridge to medical. We need emergency assistance." There was no answer. Communications within the ship were down. In the engine room, Engineer Green fought to keep the ship's systems online. His assistant, Frank Davis, lay dead beside him, killed by an exploding power conduit. Green's face was streaked with tears and soot, but his hands remained steady as he rerouted power. "Come on, old girl," he whispered to the ship. "Just hold together a little longer." The engine room door burst open. Green turned, expecting to see a rescue team. Instead, 3 tall reptilian figures stood in the doorway, their scaled skin gleaming dully in the emergency lights. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that glowed with energy. The Krell had boarded the Compassion. Green raised his hand slowly. "This is a medical vessel," he said clearly. "We are non-combatants under interstellar law." The lead Krell tilted its head, yellow eyes blinking. Then it raised its weapon and fired. In the medical bay, Dr. Bennett and her team worked desperately to save lives as the ship fell apart around them. They had moved the most critical patients to the emergency bunker, a reinforced section designed to survive even if the rest of the ship was destroyed. "Where's Captain Wright?" Dr. Bennett asked, looking around at the wounded crew members who had made it to the bunker. "Last I heard, he was still on the bridge," replied a junior medic. "Doctor." Bennett made a quick decision. "Martinez, you're in charge here. I'm going to find the captain." "Laura, no." Nurse Martinez grabbed her arm. "The Krell are on board." "Then the captain needs medical help more than ever," Dr. Bennett replied firmly. She grabbed a medical kit and headed for the door. Martinez watched her go with tears in her eyes, certain she would never see her friend again. Dr. Bennett moved cautiously through the damaged corridors. The air was thick with smoke, and she could hear strange voices and heavy footsteps. The Krell searching the ship. She used her medical override codes to access maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main hallways. She was halfway to the bridge when she found Security Officer Donovan. He was slumped against a wall, blood seeping from a wound in his side, but his eyes were alert. In his hand was a small silver device with a blinking red light. "Jack," she whispered, kneeling beside him and opening her medical kit. "What happened?" "Ambush," he grunted as she examined his wound. "They were waiting for us, Laura. The distress call was fake." She pressed a bandage to his side. "Why would they target a medical ship?" "Because they're cowards," Donovan spat. Attacking those who can't fight back makes them feel powerful. He held up the silver device. I implemented Emergency Protocol Omega, Captain's last order before they took the bridge. Dr. Bennett stared at the device. Is that what I think? It is? Donovan nodded grimly. Distress beacon with our black box data. It'll reach Fleet Command in about 6 hours. He pressed it into her hand. Take it. Make sure it gets transmitted. Before she could respond, heavy footsteps approached. 3 Krell soldiers rounded the corner, weapons raised. Dr. Bennett stood slowly, holding up her hands. The universal, medical symbol on her uniform was clearly visible. I am a doctor, she said clearly. This man needs medical attention. Under Section 3 of the Interstellar Humanitarian Treaty, I request safe passage to treat the wounded. The Krell soldiers looked at each other. The leader stepped forward, examining her uniform. For a moment, Dr. Bennett thought they might honor the treaty. Then the leader raised its weapon and aimed it directly at her heart. Donovan lunged forward despite his injury, pushing Dr. Bennett aside as the Krell fired. The blast hit him squarely, in the chest. He fell back, eyes wide with shock, then still. Dr. Bennett scrambled away, still clutching the distress beacon. The Krell advanced, stepping carelessly over Donovan's body. Suddenly, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain Wright's voice came through, strained but determined. This is USHS Compassion. We are a medical vessel. You have attacked us without provocation while we were on a mercy mission. To all Krell vessels, you have violated every law of civilized space. Help is coming. There was a pause then, and may God have mercy on you because humanity won't. The transmission cut off with the sound of energy weapons fire. The Krell soldiers hesitated, looking at each other in confusion. Dr. Bennett used that moment to slip away into a maintenance shaft, the captain's final words echoing in her mind. In 6 hours, Fleet Command would know exactly what had happened to the USHS Compassion, and then the Krell would learn what it truly meant to awaken human fury. Admiral Lisa Parker stood absolutely still as she watched the recording for the 3rd time. The distress beacon from the USHS Compassion had arrived 6 hours ago, containing not just location data, but video footage from the ship's security cameras. Each viewing made her anger grow colder, more focused. The main screen in Fleet Command showed Krell soldiers firing on clearly marked medical personnel. It showed Engineer Green being shot while his hands were raised in surrender. It showed the final moments on the bridge as Captain Wright broadcast his last message before the Krell executed him. When the recording ended, Admiral Parker turned to face the assembled military leaders and government officials. The room was silent. Many had tears in their eyes. Some looked ill. All looked angry. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Parker said, her voice steady. What we have witnessed is not just an act of war. It is a violation of the most basic principles that all spacefaring civilizations have agreed upon for 200 years. The attack on a clearly marked medical vessel represents a line that must never be crossed. She pressed a button, and a star map appeared, showing the location of the attack. We have confirmed that 6 crew members of the Compassion managed to escape in a medical shuttle. Dr. Laura Bennett, who was carrying the distress beacon, is among them. Rescue vessels will reach them within 12 hours. An older man with gray hair stood up. This was Defense Secretary William Cooper. What do we know about Krell intentions? Was this a rogue commander or official policy? Admiral Parker's face hardened. 30 minutes after receiving the Compassion's distress signal, we sent a diplomatic message to the Krell High Command demanding an explanation. Their response was to broadcast this. She pressed another button. The screen showed a human woman in a nurse's uniform kneeling before a Krell officer. The woman's face was bruised, but she held her head high. The Krell officer spoke in the harsh, clicking language of their species, then raised a weapon to the nurse's head and fired. Gasps filled the room. Someone swore loudly. Admiral Parker turned off the screen. That was Nurse Kelly Adams, age 28. She had served on medical ships for 6 years and had received commendations for bravery during the Orion plague outbreak. The room was silent again. But now the silence had a different quality. It was the silence of people who had moved beyond outrage to something colder and more terrible. The President has authorized Operation Hippocratic Oath. Admiral Parker continued. All available ships are being recalled and mobilized. We launch in 24 hours. In another part of Fleet Command, Dr. Daniel Westfield stared at a photograph on his desk. It showed a young woman in a medical uniform, smiling widely as she received her certification. His daughter, Linda Westfield, had been a junior doctor aboard the Compassion. The notification of her death had come 3 hours ago. There was a knock at his door. Dr. Westfield looked up to see Captain Ryan Blackwood of the battleship UHS Retribution. "I'm sorry to disturb you, Doctor," Blackwood said quietly. "I heard about Linda." Dr. Westfield nodded, unable to speak. "I came because Admiral Parker said you requested assignment to my ship for Operation Hippocratic Oath." "That's right," Dr. Westfield said, finding his voice. "I want to be there when we find the Krell responsible for this." Captain Blackwood studied the older man. "This isn't about revenge, Doctor." "No," Dr. Westfield agreed. "It's about justice. And it's about showing the Krell that attacking healers doesn't make you strong. It makes you a monster." He paused. "I've developed new medical protocols for treating Krell injuries. I want to be there to implement them when we take prisoners." "Captain," Blackwood looked surprised. "You want to treat the same species that killed your daughter?" "I'm a doctor, Captain. That's what we do." Dr. Westfield stood up. "The Krell need to understand that we're not like them. We don't target the defenseless, and we don't abandon our principles even when we're angry." The captain nodded slowly. "Welcome aboard the Retribution, Doctor." Across human space, the response to the attack was swift and unified. Colony worlds that had been arguing with Earth for years offered their ships and resources without hesitation. Private vessels volunteered to join the fleet. Medical personnel, typically the most pacifistic members of society, enlisted in record numbers. Ambassador Nicole Carter stood before the United Human Council, reading the final diplomatic message that would be sent to the Krell. In violation of all interstellar laws and basic moral principles, Krell forces have attacked and destroyed the medical vessel USHS Compassion while it was engaged in a humanitarian mission. Furthermore, Krell leadership has executed a captured medical officer in response to our request for explanation. She paused, letting the words sink in. The United Human Territories hereby demand the immediate return of any survivors, withdrawal from human space, and full reparations for this unprovoked attack. Failure to comply within 6 standard hours will result in appropriate measures to secure justice for this atrocity. The message was transmitted throughout the galaxy. 6 hours passed with no response. On the bridge of the UHS Retribution, Captain Blackwood received the order from Admiral Parker. "All ships, this is Admiral Parker. Operation Hippocratic Oath is now active. Primary objectives: locate and secure any survivors from the Compassion, apprehend those responsible, and demonstrate to the Krell that attacking those who heal others is unacceptable." The human fleet moved out, nearly 100 ships strong. At its heart were 3 massive battleships: the Retribution, the Justice, and the Judgment. Around them flew carriers, destroyers, and fast attack craft. Even converted cargo vessels had joined, fitted with makeshift armor and weapons. In the medical bay of the Retribution, Dr. Westfield prepared his staff. "We will likely be treating both human survivors and Krell prisoners," he told the assembled doctors and nurses. "Both will receive the best care we can provide." A young medic raised his hand. "Sir, the Krell killed our people. They killed your daughter. How can you ask us to help them?" Dr. Westfield looked at the young man steadily. "Because we're healers. That's what makes us different from them. They attacked a medical ship because they saw compassion as weakness. We will show them that it's strength." 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at the edge of Krell space. Long-range sensors detected the 3 Krell warships that had attacked the Compassion. They were in formation near a small space station, proudly displaying pieces of the destroyed medical vessel as trophies. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Blackwood received the final orders from Admiral Parker. "This is not about revenge," the Admiral reminded them. "This is about justice, and about sending a message that will be remembered for generations. We are not here to slaughter. We are here to teach. Captain Blackwood turned to his weapons officer. Target their engines and weapon systems only. Disabling shots, no destruction unless absolutely necessary. The officer nodded. Targeted and locked, sir. All hands prepare for combat, Blackwood announced over the ship's comm system. Remember the compassion. Throughout the fleet, those 3 words were repeated like a prayer. Remember the compassion. The human fleet moved forward, and the Krell were about to learn what happens when you mistake compassion for weakness. The Krell did not notice the human fleet at first. Their 3 warships hovered near their space station, crews celebrating their easy victory over the defenseless medical ship. Pieces of the Compassion's hull hung from their vessels like grisly trophies. On the bridge of the UHS Retribution, Captain Ryan Blackwood watched the tactical display with cold eyes. They're not even running standard security scans, said his first officer, Commander Allison Reeves. They don't expect any response. That will be their first mistake, Captain Blackwood replied. He opened a channel to the fleet. All vessels maintain position, stealth systems engaged, fast attack group prepare for Phase 1. Commander Peter Morris acknowledged from his lead fast attack craft, the Swift Justice. His squadron of 12 small agile ships were nearly invisible to sensors, specially designed for quick strikes. Fast attack group ready, Captain. Just give the word. Admiral Parker's voice came through from her flagship, the UHS Judgment. Begin. Phase 1. Commander Morris. Remember the mission parameters. Yes, Admiral. Precision and restraint. The 12 fast attack ships broke formation and accelerated toward the Krell vessels, using the nearby moon's magnetic field for cover. They were halfway there when a Krell sensor operator finally noticed them. Alarms blared across the Krell fleet. Their ships began powering weapons, but they were too slow. The human fast attack craft were already firing precise shots at engines, weapons arrays, and communication systems. The lead Krell warship, the one that had fired the first shot at the Compassion, tried to turn and bring its main guns to bear. Commander Morris's Swift Justice looped over it, firing surgical shots that disabled its engines without breaching the hull. The second Krell ship managed to fire once before its weapons were taken offline by precise hits from 3 fast attack vessels. The third tried to flee, engines glowing hot as it accelerated away from the battle. They're running, reported Morris over the comm. The third ship is attempting to reach the nearby jump point. Intercept and disable, ordered Admiral Parker calmly. No escapes. 4 fast attack ships peeled away from the main group, cutting off the fleeing Krell vessel. Their coordinated fire disabled its engines, leaving it drifting in space. In less than 10 minutes, all 3 Krell warships had been completely disabled without a single hull breach or life lost. The Krell crews were trapped aboard their own vessels, helpless. On the Retribution, Captain Blackwood nodded in satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. Prepare boarding teams. Security Officer Jack Donovan had been one of the few survivors from the Compassion, rescued from an escape pod after drifting for days in space. His wounds had been severe, but the medical team on the Retribution had saved his life. Now he stood in the launch bay, leading the first boarding team. Remember, he told the 20 soldiers and medical personnel gathered around him. We do this by the book. We are not the Krell. We don't shoot surrendering enemies. We don't target medical personnel. A young soldier spoke up. But sir, they killed our doctors and nurses. Yes, Donovan agreed. And that's why we have to be better than them. That's the whole point of this operation. Dr. Westfield approached the boarding team, carrying medical kits. These contain supplies specifically designed for Krell physiology. Each team will have 1 medic trained in Krell emergency care. Donovan nodded. Thank you, Doctor. The boarding teams launched, heading for the disabled Krell vessels. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Blackwood opened a channel to the Krell ships. Krell vessels, this is Captain Ryan Blackwood of the UHS Retribution. Your ships have been disabled. We are sending boarding teams. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force, but I give you my word that all who surrender will be treated according to interstellar law. Your wounded will receive medical care. There was a long pause. Then a harsh voice responded in accented human language. Human vessel, We do not surrender. Krell warriors fight to the death. Captain Blackwood's expression didn't change. That would be unwise. We have disabled your ships without destruction when we could have destroyed them completely. Think carefully about your next actions. The first boarding shuttles reached the lead Krell warship. Security Officer Donovan's team cut through the outer airlock and entered the vessel, weapons ready but not firing. They moved through the corridors in tight formation, sensors scanning for life signs. They found the first group of Krell soldiers, waiting in ambush around a corner. The Krell fired immediately. The human team took cover, returning precise fire that wounded rather than killed. "Hold fire," Donovan called out to the Krell in their own language, which he had learned during his years in space. "We offer terms of surrender. Your wounded will be treated," a Krell voice called back. "Humans are weak. You should have destroyed us. Now we will make you pay." More firing erupted. One human soldier was hit in the shoulder. The team medic immediately pulled him to safety and began treatment. Donovan signaled his team to use non-lethal weapons. They fired stun rounds and gas canisters that would temporarily incapacitate the Krell without permanent harm. Within minutes, the Krell soldiers were unconscious. "Secure them and treat any injuries," Donovan ordered. Then we moved to the bridge. Similar scenes played out across all three Krell vessels. The human boarding teams used minimum force, always offering surrender first. Some Krell fought to the death, but many were captured alive. On the third ship, a boarding team led by Commander Reeves reached the bridge. The Krell captain stood waiting, surrounded by his officers. He was larger than the others, with deeper colored scales and ceremonial markings on his armor. "I am Shipmaster Krastur," he announced. "I commanded the attack on your medical vessel." "Commander." Reeves kept her weapon trained on him. "In the name of humanity, I place you under arrest for war crimes and violations of interstellar law." Krastur made a sound that might have been laughter. "You should kill me now, human. Because if you don't, I will escape and kill more of your healers. They are the weakest of your kind, and deserve to die." Commander Reeves didn't change her expression. "If you believe healers are weak, you understand nothing about strength. Secure him." As the Krell commander was placed in restraints, medics entered the bridge, treating injured Krell officers. Krastur watched in confusion as humans helped the very enemies who had been trying to kill them moments before. "Why do you help them?" he demanded. "They would not help you." "That's the difference between us," Commander Reeves replied simply. Within 3 hours, all 3 Krell ships had been secured. The human forces had taken over 200 prisoners, including all the commanding officers responsible for the attack on the Compassion. Human casualties were minimal: 12 wounded, none killed. Dr. Westfield personally supervised the treatment of the Krell prisoners as they were transferred to the medical bay of the Retribution. He worked tirelessly, moving from bed to bed, treating Krell injuries with the same care he would show human patients. Krastur watched him from his secured medical bed. "You lost someone on the medical ship," he said suddenly. "I can see it in your eyes." Dr. Westfield paused. "My daughter. She was a doctor, like me." "Then why do you help me? You should want revenge." Dr. Westfield looked at him steadily. "If I abandoned my oath to heal because of what you did, then you would have destroyed not just my daughter's life but what she stood for. I won't let you take that too." 6 months passed since the attack on the USHS Compassion. The humans had taken the Krell prisoners back to Earth for trial. The judicial proceedings were broadcast throughout human space and to all alien civilizations. The evidence was clear and undeniable. Shipmaster Krastur and his officers were found guilty of war crimes and violations of interstellar law, but rather than execution or lifetime imprisonment, the Human Council sentenced them to serve on the newest human medical ship, the USHS Forgiveness. The Forgiveness was larger than the Compassion had been. Its white and red hull gleamed in the morning sunlight as it sat in the space dock above Earth. Inside, the final preparations for its maiden voyage were underway. Captain Ethan Wright, one of the few survivors from the Compassion, walked through the corridors of the new ship. His injuries had been severe, but months of treatment and rehabilitation had saved his life. Now he would command the Forgiveness on its first mission. He entered the medical bay, where Dr. Laura Bennett was organizing supplies. Like the captain, she had barely survived the attack, rescued from an escape pod by a passing cargo ship. "How are the preparations going, Doctor?" Captain Wright asked. Dr. Bennett looked up and offered a small smile. "On schedule, Captain. We'll be ready to depart in 3 hours. And your new assistant, how is she working out?" Dr. Bennett glanced across the medical bay, where Nurse Olivia Martinez was training new medical staff. "Martinez is exceptional. I've recommended her for accelerated officer training. After what she did to save those patients during the attack, she deserves it." Captain Wright nodded. "I'm glad you both agreed to serve on the Forgiveness. Many wouldn't have after what happened." "We're doctors and nurses, Captain. It's what we do," Dr. Bennett replied simply. The captain's communicator beeped. "Right here. Captain, your presence is requested in the main conference room," came the voice of his new first officer. "Admiral Parker and the special passengers have arrived." "On my way," Wright replied. He gave Dr. Bennett a meaningful look. "It's time." In the conference room, Admiral Lisa Parker stood next to a group of Krell. At their center was Shipmaster Krastur, no longer wearing military armor but a simple gray uniform. His wrists were bound with electronic cuffs. Captain Wright entered and stood before the Krell who had nearly killed him 6 months ago. The room was silent. "Remove his restraints," Wright ordered. A security officer looked uncertain. "Sir?" "Remove them," Wright repeated. "He'll be serving on this ship as part of his sentence. We can't have him restrained for the entire 5-year mission." The officer hesitated, then removed the cuffs from Krastur's wrists. The Krell commander rubbed his freed wrists, looking at Wright with confusion. "I do not understand," Krastur said. "You should want me dead." "Perhaps," Wright agreed. "But killing you would be easy. Teaching you is harder, and far more important." Admiral Parker stepped forward. "Shipmaster Krastur and his officers will serve on the Forgiveness for the next 5 years. They will assist the medical staff, learn human medical techniques, and participate in humanitarian missions. At the end of this period, they will return to Krell space as ambassadors." Krastur looked around the room. "And if we refuse?" "You were given a choice," Admiral Parker reminded him. "This or permanent imprisonment. You chose this." The Krell commander nodded slowly. "Because I did not understand. I still don't understand why you do not simply execute us. It would be your right under both human and Krell law." Captain Wright looked him directly in the eyes. "Because that's not what we're about. You attacked a medical ship because you saw compassion as weakness. Now you'll learn why it's actually our greatest strength." 2 hours later, the Forgiveness was ready to launch. Its first mission was to a Krell colony world suffering from a viral outbreak. The same colony that had celebrated when news of the Compassion's destruction reached them. As the ship prepared to depart, Dr. Daniel Westfield joined the medical team. He had specifically requested this assignment, despite knowing he would be working alongside the very Krell who had ordered his daughter's death. In the ship's memorial hall, Westfield stood looking at the wall where the names of those lost on the Compassion were displayed. His daughter's name, Dr. Linda Westfield, was among them. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned to find Krastur standing behind him. "Your ship record says you requested this assignment," the Krell said. "You asked to work with me knowing what I did." Dr. Westfield nodded. "I did." "Why?" "Because someone needs to show you what my daughter stood for, what all these people stood for." He gestured to the wall of names. "And I'm still a doctor. That hasn't changed." The ship launched without ceremony, leaving Earth behind as it headed toward Krell space. On the bridge, Captain Wright watched the view screen as stars streaked past. "Course laid in for the Krell colony Draknar, sir," reported Lieutenant Wells, who had also survived the attack on the Compassion. "Proceed at standard speed," Wright ordered, "and send a message to the colony. Tell them we're coming to help and we're bringing medical personnel and supplies." In the medical bay, Krastur watched as human doctors prepared treatments for the very people who had celebrated their attack on the Compassion. Dr. Bennett assigned him to assist Nurse Martinez in organizing supplies. "Why are you helping people who would kill you if they could?" Krastur asked Martinez as they worked. "Because they're sick and we can help them," she replied. "That's all that matters." "Even after what we did to your ship? To your friends?" Martinez paused. "I won't lie, it's not easy. Every day I remember the friends I lost. Every day I wonder if I could have saved more of them." She looked at the Krell directly. "But if I let hate change who I am and what I stand for, then you've truly destroyed everything, not just a ship." The forgiveness arrived at the Krell colony 3 days later. The colonial leaders were confused and suspicious when the human medical ship entered orbit. They were even more confused when their own kind emerged alongside the humans in the first medical teams. Dr. Bennett led the first team to the surface, bringing Krastur with her. The Krell colonists were hostile at first, refusing human help. But as their own people explained the situation, and as the sick continued to suffer, attitudes began to change. A small Krell child collapsed near Dr. Bennett. She rushed to help, scanning the child with her medical devices. Respiratory distress and fever. "We need to get her to the ship immediately." The child's parent, a military officer who wore medals from the conflict with humans, blocked her path. "No human will touch my child." Krastur stepped forward. "I am Shipmaster Krastur. I led the attack on their medical vessel 6 months ago, and I tell you now, let them help your child or she will die." The parent hesitated, then stepped aside. Hours later on the Forgiveness, the child was recovering. Her parent watched in confusion as Dr. Bennett checked the child's vital signs. "I don't understand," the Krell officer said. "Why would you save my child after what we've done?" Dr. Bennett looked up with a tired smile. "Because I'm a doctor. That's what we do." On the observation deck, Captain Wright stood with Krastur, looking down at the Krell colony. "Now do you understand?" Wright asked. "This is what happens when you attack a human medical ship." Krastur watched as more medical teams transported to the surface. "You heal us anyway." "Yes," Wright replied. "And that takes far more strength than destruction ever could."